Okay, so now let's look at the uterine tube. Okay, uterine tube goes by many names: uterine tube, fallopian tube, the oviduct. I'm going to try to just stick with uterine tube, but all of those are synonymous with it. Um, the uterine tubes extend out laterally from the uterus, and they go out towards where the ovary is, obviously, that we just talked about. The uterine tube, I mean, it does a couple things, I guess. It's where fertilization occurs, and it transports the ovulated oocyte to the uterus. Site of fertilization. Okay, so it does a couple different things. It's draped in a broad ligament. It'll have some ability to keep it in place because of that. So there is that. There are 4 different parts to the uterine tube that you should know about. The first part, and by first part I mean nearest to the ovary, is the infundibulum. Okay, the infundibulum. I'm trying to see if I have a picture here. I thought I had a picture somewhere. Oh yeah, right here. Okay, here is the infundibulum, and these are, excuse me guys, these are the fimbriae that drape down over. Okay, if my fist is the ovary, okay, my fingers are the fimbriae, they just kind of drape down over the ovary like that. They cover it, and they're there to help catch that oocyte, fertilized egg, or I'm sorry, the mature egg. Has the fimbriae, and it catches the egg during ovulation. The next part is the bend. Okay, it's the bend, and that's the ampulla. And this, I'll just put the bend in tube. And this is where fertilization typically happens. Okay, optimally. It can happen at any portion along the length of the uterine tube. This is just where the optimal point of fertilization for implantation, and bam, blastocyst implants can implant easily within that uterine lining there. So that's where this primarily occurs. We have a part that continues on from the bend. So if we have my fimbriae here and the infundibulum, and we have the bend. Then we have the uterus. Okay, put the U for the uterus. So here is my infundibulum with the fimbriae. In this region right here, this is the ampulla. And then the rest of this here is going to be the isthmus. It's what extends towards the uterus. And then we have the part right here that connects the uterine tube to the uterus, ingeniously called the uterine part. It's what penetrates the wall of the uterus. It allows that oocyte or zygote to bebop into the uterus. When we look at the uterus, it is a pear-shaped organ. It can be anteverted, which means just it's orientated towards the front of the body, where it's over the bladder. It can shift, all right? It doesn't necessarily have to be in order. It can it usually shifts as you get older, but it can be retroverted and kind of pointed back towards the rectum. Doesn't matter if it's either way. There may be some data to suggest that anteverted is the better when it comes to, fertilization and birth and whatnot, but anteverted, retroverted is just kind of where it goes and shifts. Functions, this is the site of implantation for the blastocyst, basically. It will help to contract and eject the fetus. At the end of pregnancy. It's also going to basically sustain this creature until the placenta can develop. Very important aspect, that function. We're going to talk about the uterus, and ultimately we're going to talk about the uterine cycle as well, and talk a little bit about what that is in terms of protecting, supporting, nourishing. When you look at the uterus itself, and I apologize, I don't have any pictures right away here. We have kind of the dome-shaped portion. Okay, and there's the opening there. We have this dome-shaped portion here, and this is called the fundus. Just like we had the dome-shaped portion of the stomach, that was also referred to as the fundus. So is this. It's just a dome shape. We have the body. Okay, we have the body of the uterus right here. It's the major part of the organ. We have where it constricts down to a point right here. This is the isthmus. Okay, here's the body. Here's the isthmus. Okay. It's just where it starts to constrict down, where the body comes. It's just, this is where it starts to narrow down. That's it. And the most inferior, most portion of it, it's right there. This is called the cervix. It actually butts into the vaginal canal. So it does project into the uterus. It is an opening. There's an internal os, there's an external os, there's an internal opening and an external opening associated with it. So rich with cervical glands in this region right here to help create mucus, trap any foreign invader that, you know, comes up through that opening. So there's a few different things that kind of go into it here, and I think I may have those on the next slide, so bear with me here. But these are kind of the four major regions: the top, the fundus, the body, the big part where it starts to narrow, the isthmus, and the very end as it abuts into the vaginal canal called the cervix. Here they are. Where that part narrows down at the end of the isthmus, it helps to form a channel, and that's what the cervical canal is. Cervical canal starts at the very end of the isthmus and continues through the cervix. So we have an opening that occurs there at that cervix, opening on the inside, opening on the outside. This is the internal os. And this is the external os. And it's just an opening, okay, that allows entry up into where all the goods are. And by the goods, I mean the fertilized eggs, or the potential eggs to fertilize. And again, through that cervical canal, there's a lot of mucus producing glands. They help, you know, produce a mucus plug. And this helps to prevent anything from, you know, getting in there that shouldn't get in there, foreign invaders, pathogens. Usually around ovulation time, it thins for the sperm. How lucky for us. So that sperm can easily get through that not as viscous region. So it can get back to the ampulla to fertilize the egg. We have a number of support structures, and by support structures, I mean muscles and ligaments. There are a number of ligaments that help to hold this thing in place. To hold the ovary in place, we have the ovarian, we have the suspensory ligaments. When it comes to the fallopian tube, the oviduct, uterine tube, we have the broad ligament. We also have the broad ligament here as well. The broad ligament drapes over everything within the pelvic cavity for the female and helps to hold it in place. But we also have a couple other ligaments as well, the round ligaments. These extend from the lateral uterus and kind of come forward and help to prevent backwards movement of the uterus. We also have a number of uterosacral ligaments, and those kind of go towards, they're on the back side of the uterus and extend back towards the sacrum, help to prevent it moving from forward. So we got the round, we got the back, or we got the uterosacral, we've locked it in front to back. We have broad ligament. We have what's called, there's cardinal ligaments as well that kind of help with the process. They're not the major ones. That's why I don't have them listed. So we have all these ligaments to kind of help hold this thing in place. There's also a number of muscles associated, muscles of the pelvic floor, We'll just keep it simple. That help to hold the uterus as well as the vagina in proper position. So pregnancies will cause these things to stretch out a little bit. So, over time, if you have multiple pregnancies, you can stretch these things out. The uterus can descend and cause some issues. We have some walls associated with the uterus, and these are going to be really important when it comes to discussing the menstrual cycle, the uterine cycle. The outermost layer is the perimetrium. Peri is around, outermost. It's contains with the broad ligament. The myometrium is easy. Myo means muscle. So this is where all the smooth muscle is going to reside. This is the layer that's going to be contracting to help eject the fetus. And then the innermost layer is the most important probably, and that's the endometrium. The endometrium has two parts to it, a basal layer and a functional layer. The basal layer is permanent, guys. Very few things change during the uterine cycle here, right? Where all the magic is happening for the uterine cycle is right here, okay? This is the one that changes because of estrogen. This is where we're going to see a thickening up. This is the layer that is shed during menstruation if no fertilization occurs. From the uterus, we head into the vagina, and it's just a fibromuscular tube. I don't really know what to really say about it. That's really all it is. It functions as a birth canal. It's a organ of copulation. It receives the penis during intercourse, passage for menstruation. That's basically about it. It is an acidic environment. It's highly vascularized. So it's acidic environment to help ward off infection, sperm that shouldn't be there, all that fun stuff. Not much here in terms of a lot of histology here, guys. But here are all those parts. Here is the uterine tube. There's the fimbriae. There's the ampulla. There's the bend. The uterine part. I'm sorry, the isthmus, and then the uterine part right here where it connects. There you go. See? Booyah. The fundus, the body, and then here's where it starts to constrict down. The isthmus here, not very big. Internal os, cervical canal, external os, all of this is the cervix. And as you can see, yep, it is abutting into the vaginal canal. And there's the vagina right there. That takes us into the uterine cycle.